Hello, we're Team 4 and we will present Grammar Science Part 4. This is our contents. Yes. First, we will introduce about structural relation C-command and an alternative hypothesis and C-command phenomena as constituency test and the category of words, position, meaning, and function, and the category of phrases. So, I will talk about structural relations in syntax, focusing on C-command. Yes, this idea is central to understanding why dependent constructions like MPIs, reflexes, and each the other work or sometimes fail. The point is that co-occurrence alone isn't enough. What really matters is the structural hierarchy. Here's the problem. Just having each and the other in the same sentence doesn't give us the intended rating. For example, sentence the other saw each man and this do not sound right. So, clearly, structure, not just co-occurrence, is needed. This leads to hypothesis A. X can depend on Y only if Y C-commands X. In short, it's the structural relation, not word order, that determines dependency. Take subject and object. The subject C-command the object, which explains why no one saw anything is grammatical. But in anyone saw nothing, the trigger is in the object position and cannot C-command the subject. As a result, MPI anyone is not licensed by the sentence is ungrammatical. Now, look at direct and indirect objects. In Homer gave nothing to anyone, the direct object C-commands the indirect object, so the MPI is licensed. But in Homer gave anything to no one, the trigger is lowered and cannot C-command. That's why the sentence failed. To wrap up, dependent elements are licensed but only if their trigger C-commands them. This explains MPIs, reflexes, and each the other. The big takeaway is that sentence structure, not just meaning, determines grammatically.
According to the hypothesis A we proved earlier, the distributions of NPI and reflexive can be best explained by using C-command. However, maybe it is not really C-command, but just the order of the words. If we look at the ungrammatical sentences we saw before, the dependent element comes before the item it depends on, then would not the sentence become correct if the dependent element comes after the item it depends on? Based on this idea, let us make hypothesis B. X can be dependent on Y only if Y precedes X. Now let's test which hypothesis is more appropriate. According to hypothesis A, the dependency between words depends on the tree structure, and this sentence is wrong because the dependent element is not properly C-commanded. Hypothesis B, on the other hand, only looks at the order of words. It says that since the dependent element comes after the item it depends on, the sentence should be correct. But in fact, this sentence is still ungrammatical, even though the dependent element comes after the phrase it depends on. From this example, we can see that hypothesis A is more appropriate than hypothesis B. And the next is a secondment phenomena as constituency test. The first is the word list. Before moving on, let me explain some key terms. First is account. It means to give an explanation or reason. And second is purpose, tools used to investigate or explore. Third is constituency, the hierarchical grouping of words into units. And the last is licensor, an eliminate that allows another element such as an MPI to appear in a sentence. And the next is to determine which sentence structure is correct. We often need to check the secondment relationship. Dependent expression like MP1s such as anything are only grammatical. There will in a seconding licensor such as no one. The fact that the sentence Homer put no one in anything is well formed provides evidence that the structure in which the MP1 secondment MP2 is correct, and this sentence. Therefore, secondment is an important tool for analyzing sentence structure and testing competing hypotheses. And now let's compare two possible structure for the sentence Homer puts Maggie in the club. In 313a, MP1 appears higher than MP2. If MP1 secondments MP2, the sentence should be grammatical. In contrast, in 313b, MP1 does not secondment MP2, so the sentence should be ungrammatical. And the next is, so the sentence difference between the two trees is the relative position of the direct object MP1 and the object of the position MP2. In 313a, secondments MP2, making the sentence well-formed. In 313b, MP1 does not secondment MP2, making the sentence ungrammatical. And the last summary is to determine which sentence structure is correct. We often need to check the secondment relationship, dependent expression like MP1, such as anything only grammatical when there is a seconding licensor such as no one. The fact that the sentence Homer put no one in anything is well formed provides evidence that the structure is in which MP1 secondments MP2 is correct. Therefore, secondment is an important tool for analyzing sentence structure and testing comparative hypotheses.
Next up is part 4, the category of words. According to the Greek philosopher Dionysius Thrax, the word category has the same meaning as part of speech. He explained 8 different parts of speech based on his native language Greek. The first part of speech is the noun, which shows case inflection and refers to a person or a thing. The next is the verb, which does not show case inflection, but changes according to tense, person, and number, and expresses an action or process. The article follows, which has case inflection and is placed before or after a noun. The adverb is used to modify or qualify a verb. The pronoun replaces a noun and is marked for person. The particle combines features of both nouns and verbs. The preposition is placed before other words in a sentence. Finally, the conjunction connects discourse and fills gap in interpretation. When defining these categories, we can use 3 different criteria: inflection, position, and meaning or function. Among them, inflection refers to the systematic variation in the form of a word. From the perspective of modern English, not Greek, it is important to note that only pronouns show case inflection. For example, it can be seen that the subject is she and the accusative is her. Nouns usually show number inflections such as book becomes books. Verb change according to tense as in look and looked. Adjectives are often inflected for degree, for example, tall, taller, and tallest. Adverbs, on the other hand, are generally formed by adding ly, as we see in quick becoming quickly. Through these patterns of inflection, we can often identify nouns, verb, adjectives, and adverbs in English. Now let's move on to the second criteria, which is position. Words tend to appear in specific places in a sentence, and this tells us a lot about their category. If we look at the first box, we can see that articles and determiners like the of every, most always appear with the noun. So the man or every fish are natural, but the say or every in are not acceptable. If we look at the second box, we see prepositions such as to, from, under, over. They usually co-occur with a noun phrase like to the doctor, from a friend, under the chair, over the rainbow. So when a new word keeps appearing in the same position as these, we can classify it into the same category. In short, position gives us a strong clue for classification. The third criterion is meaning or function. This focuses on the typical role that each category plays in language. Nouns usually refer to concrete objects or people, for example, a teacher, a book, or a city. Prepositions show relationships, often of time or space, such as before, after, in, on, or under. Verbs describe actions or states like hit, run, know, or believe. Adjectives usually pick out properties or qualities such as tall, small, red, or difficult. And determiners often express quantity or references like every, some, to, or both. What's interesting is that these meanings are not only labels but also guide how words combine in a sentence. For instance, if a word expresses an action like run, we expect it to take a subject. If it expresses a property like tall, we expect it to modify a noun. So meaning and function helps us predict how words behave with other words. That's why meaning can be very powerful criterion. It does not just tell us what a word is, but also what it does in the structure of a sentence.
In syntax, phrases can be noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases, and more. However, it's not always clear which category a phrase fits into. So in order to determine this, linguists use two methods, the substitution test and the conjunction test. The idea of the substitution test is that if you can replace one phrase with another and the sentence still makes sense, then both phrases belong to the same category. For example, take the sentence Homer chased Bart in the park. We can replace in the park with there, and the sentence Homer chased Bart there still works well. Since in the park is a prepositional phrase and there can replace it, we can say there also acts as a prepositional phrase. Both refer to a location, which is why this substitution makes sense. Another example. PPT 안 누르지. Another example is Homer and Marge ran away together. We can replace it with Homer and Marge eloped. If ran away together is a verb phrase and eloped, which means to run away secretly, can substitute for it, then eloped is also a verb phrase. But there are times when substitution does not work. If we say Homer left the room and try to replace it with Homer left quickly, the meaning and the categories are different. The room is a noun phrase while quickly is an adverb. They do not belong to the same category. Another method is the conjunction test. The idea is that only phrases of the same category can be joined together by a conjunction. Look at the example, Homer and Marge ran away together, and Homer and Marge quarreled. If we combine them, we get Homer and Marge quarreled and ran away together. The sentence is fine, showing that both quarreled and ran away together are verb phrases. If they belong to different categories, the sentence would not sound correct. Thank you.